Hey, the better rifle. Drop the gun! Oh, shit! I'm hit. I'm okay. But not gonna die.
Welcome to Badges, Bullets, and Blunders. I'm the host, Travis Harless. Before we get started, if you'd like to support this podcast, go check out our friends at Slick Sleeve Syndicate. It's just a t-shirt company. The link will be in the description. Today's guests are Matt and John. Matt and John are police officers at a police department in California. John, let's start with you. How long have you been an officer? What are some assignments you've had, and what do you currently do as an officer?
Yeah, I've been an officer about 19, going on 20 years. Started at some smaller agencies, worked at some agencies where there was about 15 sworn, then moved up to about 35, and now the agency we work for now, there's about almost 500 sworn. I've worked all sorts of assignments. I started off in patrol, obviously. Worked a lot in gangs. I had a big passion in gang units and just learning about the gang cultures and all that. So I worked a lot with the gang units in the departments that I worked for. Eventually I promoted and became a detective, started working on some investigations. I worked in the special victims unit. I worked in homicide. And then after that, I promoted to sergeant and worked quite a bit on patrol as a sergeant. And then I've been in the training division for about the past 5 years full-time as a sergeant over the training division. I oversee our defensive tactics team. I oversee our range. We have a use of force working group that I oversee and manage for our department. And
What's a working group?
so it's basically a group of subject matter experts that come together and we review use of force incidents once a month. So
all officers in the department?
It eventually covers almost all officers in the department. It's just a fraction of what actually happens. There's
I just meant the people in the working group are all police officers.
Yeah, it's just there's about 6 or 7 of us, subject matter experts that have been defensive tactics instructors in the past or current instructors. They've been involved in all kinds of use of force incidents and whatnot themselves, so they have a lot of knowledge. And we review use of force incidents every month and try and see if everything is within the policy and law that and this is after a supervisor looks at it. So I mean, if a use of force happens, they'll go through all these steps and processes as far as like an investigation. A supervisor gets called to the scene, they start talking to people, and then it goes up to a lieutenant, and a lieutenant will approve it, and then after that it'll get routed to us, and we'll get a random sampling of use of force cases, and we'll review them each month and come up with outcomes on what we think was proper. If officers did a really good job, and we'll give them some accommodations, or if there's some areas where we find some training opportunities, and we'll bring them in for some remedial training or some training that maybe they haven't gotten before to try and make them more safe and proficient out in the field. So that takes up quite a bit of our time. It's one of the things that in our department we do, I think, a pretty good job at is capturing some of these use of force. I don't like calling them deficiencies, but just more like a use of force opportunity where we can provide some improvement, some good training, and really hitting it quickly right after or shortly after the use of force happens. So I mean the closure loop on identifying a problem and then providing the training is usually pretty quick.
Yeah. So you don't want to identify a problem and then not address it for a while and let it just float around out there.
Yeah, it loses a lot of the impact if you identify a problem and then nothing gets done about it and it just sits there. And then, I mean, that person might think that everything that they did was perfectly fine, and they might do it 2, 3, 4, 5 more times before it actually gets addressed by somebody. So yeah, it's really important that finding those opportunities and then addressing them as quickly as we can. And we still have some lag time. A use of force might happen in January, and we're going to review it in February. The training might not get provided till March, but I mean, even a 2 to 3 month, time gap is pretty good when you consider, what we've done in the past, which was training would only get provided if something really bad happened.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten away from that, and we're providing a lot more regular training to officers, and it's really been an improvement. Even just in the time that I've been there, we've seen a lot of progression and improvement in the quality of the training that we provide. And it's part of just from what's been pushed in the culture of law enforcement, and it's part of what we've internally been able to sort of capsize and grow on. We got experts like Matt and some of these other people that we brought onto the team that are really, really good and knowledgeable and good instructors. And so they've been able to take our training up to the next level. And we get a lot of positive feedback from the officers that come through.
Yeah. Right on. What about you, Matt? Tell us about your background. We'll get to your police officer experience here soon, but what did you do before you became an officer?
Man, I grew up in the desert, and there's not much to do out there except learn about Jesus, do sports, or get into some criminal activity. And I chose Jesus and training.
Did it all.
So I avoided that criminal side,
crime?
thankfully.
No crime? You don't have to admit to anything here on the podcast.
Thank you. I plead the fifth. No, I had a great upbringing. Wrestling from the age of 4. I just wrestled my whole life because I loved it. My father, judo instructor, fought in UFC. He had all the martial arts. He just raised us as if you go to church, you go to school, you learn combat. That's how
Did you just gloss over the fact that your dad was in the UFC?
Yeah, dude, he's a hero to me. But
I don't know who he is.
What years was he active as a UFC fighter?
I don't know. I was like 3, so this is 20. I think it was before UFC 100. Like they had gloves at this point. They had gloves.
Okay.
But
Before, so
he
UFC
trained.
100.
You know Boss Rutan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Boss Rutan, excellent at standing. He needed to learn some ground game for Kevin Randleman. So he goes to my dad and trains with my dad in our backyard in the shed.
Wow.
So just like
Boss Rutan. So you've met, and obviously
when I was
Boss
younger, I don't really remember.
You don't remember?
But there's
He was Uncle Boss back then.
Yeah,
huh?
Uncle Boss talking about liver kicks.
so like,
That's his big move, the liver kick.
oh, he's an animal.
Yeah.
So I had a huge privilege, to be honest, just growing up in combat training. But the biggest thing I think was loving it. So judo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, those were just daily activities we did. Brother fights, they weren't just like slugfest.
They were
pulling-
matches.
Oh, straight matches.
Yeah. How many siblings do you have?
I've had 3 brothers, 1 sister.
Oh, wow.
And I'm in the middle. So it was a
So
full
4
house.
boys, all doing combat sports.
Oh, yeah.
That's wild.
And I loved it. I loved it. I still love the whole I think it's an art. It really is an art to
That's why I call it martial arts.
combat, really, but people don't see it as that. And so,
People who don't do it.
right, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I wrestled throughout high school, and that was my way to college. We didn't have the money, so I knew I needed to make it to college. So I doubled down, just focused only on wrestling. Made it to college, wrestled at Division I, spent 5 years, a redshirt year. And after that, I didn't know what to do. I just want to keep wrestling. So I keep wrestling. I try to go for the Olympics 2020. So I moved to Colorado Springs, the Olympic Training Center, and I just enjoy all of it. And then there was a higher passion that I had, was pursuing my wife. And so I left wrestling for
That'll happen.
pursuing a family.
It happens.
And, we start, marriage, and we have a baby coming 9 months after marriage, and I need to find a job. And the police department was hiring. So I said, you know what? I may not love it, but it will provide, and I love my family more. So let's do that. And I've really grown to love this job, but that's how I entered policing.
So you gave up going to the Olympics as a wrestler to become a municipal police officer?
I wouldn't say I gave up. I would say my passion pursuit
Turned your
changed.
back on the world stage for your wife.
It was a
Say it like that, so that way when your wife sees this, you'll be like, oh.
no. It was a higher pursuit of joy and sense of purpose.
Nice. So wait, how long were you at the training center for?
Maybe 5 months.
Is that where you guys met?
No, we met in college. She was a Division I volleyball player.
Oh, okay. Nice. Man, you guys are going to have some Olympians.
How
many kids do you have?
Willing. 4.
You have 4 right now?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, you just went to work. He's talking about in 20.
Hard work
It's
pays off.
2025 right now. He's talking about in 2020 he was no kids and you had 4 now.
Work hard, play hard.
That's
That's
awesome.
how we do it.
Wait, do you have any twins?
No.
Wow, one after
Just-
another, huh?
Back to back.
Bang, bang,
5,
bang.
3, 2, and a 8-month-old.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
man.
Are you done?
We're done. Medically done.
Got to
done.
he took a medical retirement.
Man, yeah. No, but
Yeah, dang. So you got a D1 volleyball player, a D1 wrestler. You guys are gonna have some
Lord willing.
Super athletes.
super athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had Edmund in here before, and Edmund. He was a college basketball player. He's like 6'6", 6'7", and he's talking about like, if I had to do it all over again, he's like, I would only date girls that were above 6 foot.
So my wife's 6'2". She's
Oh
taller
wow,
than me.
dang,
Yeah, she's a volleyball player.
Man,
Yeah,
playing up.
makes sense.
I've looked
That's
up
good.
to her since the day I met her, man.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah, it is awesome. It really
your
is.
kids are all gonna be taller than you.
Yeah, I tell everyone, I've got to be purposeful, discipline them well, raise them up in the way of the Lord, because come 15 years old, I'm going to be struggling to keep up with them.
Yeah. How many boys?
2 boys, 2 girls.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, those boys are gonna tag team you. You're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, they do push back. Yeah, my oldest will be 18 next month, and every time that I come home, they're testing the skills.
Yep.
And they're pushing me because they're all doing jujitsu now. So every single time I come home, it's a living room wrestling match.
Any of them get there yet?
No, not yet, but they're getting close. They are getting close.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son's 4. He's always trying to check me. So nice.
It'll be day.
Yeah.
All right, so then you guys get married. You crank out 4 kids, and you when did you become a police officer?
2020, become a police officer.
Okay. So you went to the academy during the COVID stuff,
During the COVID stuff.
during the silly mask time.
Silly times.
That was a wild time. I remember Matt's academy because they all had to wear the masks, the entire academy.
During
And
PT and
during
everything.
PT and everything.
Oh
They were
my God.
strict.
Sweat. It's like waterboarding yourself.
So dumb.
And I remember specifically, Matt had chewed a
yeah.
small hole in his mask so that he could breathe because they were all wearing these felt
yeah.
masks, and he had chewed a hole in his mask so that he could breathe.
Black
during PT.
mask. They can't see it. So I chewed right there. And
like a straw.
It was ridiculous.
oh, yeah.
He's got aftermarket performance enhancement.
That's right. Sell those masks. Training masks.
State ref your mask.
Yeah, he's got a cold air intake on that that COVID mask.
Turbo when I was
Yeah.
running.
I just quit wearing them after like the first month. Just refused to wear them.
I tried that for like 12 seconds until I got yelled at.
It's harder in the academy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So then, so what have you done as an officer? So you've been an officer for about 5 years then?
About 5 years. This is my 5th year. Graduated. Was just on patrol. Enjoying that. I hit my 2-year mark when I applied for the Defense Tactics full-time position, and I got that. So this is my 3rd year in that position.
Nice.
Working under Sarge, and it's a joy. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got onto defensive tactics first, and then you got that full-time position.
Yeah, I was on for 1 year as a part-time,
Yeah, yeah.
and then at the 2-year mark of my career, full-time.
Nice.
All right. So then you do all the same, sort of the same stuff John had talked about, but just not at the supervisory level. Part
Yeah.
of the working group, right?
Part of the working group.
Yeah.
I would say mainly more of the ins and outs of the actual training. So I just supervise and make sure it's all checked off. But I don't get to do all that side of it. So I'm kind of glad. I like what I do.
Yeah. Okay. So then you work with the academies and then also with officers.
Yep, academies, patrol, like AO school.
Yeah.
We have open mat where, hey, anyone's welcome.
What's the turnout rate for a mat?
It goes in waves. I mean, we'll get a good group, especially like right after an academy will graduate. You know, we'll get a lot of motivated new police officers that want to come through and they want to, continue to improve on all the skills that they learned and everything. So usually after academies, we'll get a good turnout of young officers coming in and wanting to train. I mean, right now we have it twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6:00 in the morning. It works well with the schedules that were already there, and there's usually no training going on at 6 a.m. And so we're able to get people in. So, I mean, some days we'll be me and Matt rolling around in there, and then, some days there's 20 guys in there. So it just kind of depends. The more people that we get in, obviously the better we're going to be training, and we get to, roll with different body types, and different people will come in and teach some different skills. I mean, Matt's got the wrestling background, so he's going to teach a lot of the takedowns and a lot of the things that are going to be applicable in like self-defense situations, but also in taking people into custody. It's like a huge wrestling foundation is what we base a lot of our defensive tactics on. But I mean, we have some jiu-jitsu black belts, jiu-jitsu brown and purple belts that come in and they teach some jiu-jitsu techniques. We have a lot of strikers, I grew up doing a lot of Muay Thai and I like doing striking. So like we'll do striking. We've had some Battle of the Badge champions that keep coming back through that have fought for our department before and they keep coming in and doing some of the striking stuff. So there's a whole variety of things that we can do.
We have a
during
professional boxer now too.
Yeah, that's right. We do Golden Gloves.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, HBO special. Yeah, might have heard of them.
Yeah. So what's that like? So did you do any like prior to getting this job? Were you ever like a wrestling coach or an instructor, or were you just?
Yeah, I coached at the time Division II, going to Division I, Baptist college here in California. That like truly that was dream job. I made a list of dream jobs right after Olympic Training Center, and Division I wrestling coach was number one, followed by number 6 police officer.
Yeah.
And you just start pursuing those. So I started putting all the applications in, and I was like a year later from putting an application in, not hearing a word. On my honeymoon, get a call. Hey, you're our number one candidate. Come on down. Awesome. And I did that. So I'm trying to sit with my wife. What's the wise path here? I wrote down, if I take this job, if I stay where I'm at in here in and I had it written down. We could buy a house. We could have kids at 5-year mark, 10-year mark. And we're like, all right, it's a longer path, but let's do this as more joy. Take the job the next week. Hey, we're pregnant. And I've already moved down there. She's finishing out her teaching here. And I was only there for 6 months because I found out it's not going to provide.
Yeah.
His assistant coach position, but I loved every second of it. Could not believe. I woke up, wrestled,
Yeah.
lift, workout. Had kids come in, but they're men.
Yeah.
Come in and walk through. Hey, how are you doing spiritually? How's your walk with Christ? All the ins and outs. I loved the instructing, and I actually grew much more of a wrestler. Learned all the techniques, how to teach. Even like there's a good way to teach, not a good way. A good approach, not a good approach. How people learn that kind of thing. And I loved all of that. Again, higher joy though. It's like I love this job, but I love my family more.
Yeah.
So it's a hard time in the moment, but looking back, it served a purpose, and I see how it's playing out here.
What's the difference now? So now that you instruct at a police department, so you're dealing with different skill levels, and obviously, if somebody is going to a college to be a college wrestler, there's going to be a foundation there, and there's going to be also a desire to learn the skill and to improve. Whereas, you have all different types of skill levels, different levels of desire that you're dealing with.
Yep.
Like, what's that like?
Yeah, actually, my last full-time partner, Brandon, love him. He had the same mindset. We're used to dealing with D1 mindsets, so it's very difficult when not everyone has that mindset that you wake up every day to be the best, to win a national title, or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
With police department, you have people who are just wanting to get paid sometimes, to be honest. They need a job like myself.
Yeah.
But there's a different motivation there for why. And even at the college level, though, there's some statistic of the 90, the 10, or whatever. There still is that dilemma where people are just happy to be on a team. They're just happy to be there. Yes, they're good at what they do, but they're just happy to be there. Versus the guys who truly want to make a difference. There's very few of those, no matter what profession you go to. However, in the police department, there are a lot of people who I don't know why. I don't know if it's the marketing, it's this time. They maybe don't fully understand what it takes to be a police officer, and they're unaware of truly what they have to be exposed to, the evil they'll have to face, and they themselves will have to enforce the law on evil and what that means. And so I think they're there happy to just pass a test, to get a paycheck, get a badge. And you almost have to give them the why, whereas they have the why at D1. They came there because they want to be the best. Where you can't force it, but you have to show the purpose of the why, show the beauty of like, yes, life and death. Yes, you make a difference. You have to spoon feed them that sometimes. That's and it is difficult. There's different learning abilities, you name it. It's difficult.
Spoon feed that through like red band training or.
Well, just
drills.
Truthfully, just to be honest, you expose them to what a taste of what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And if you don't like that,
A taste of what it feels like to be in a fight.
a fight, yeah, for your life.
Yeah.
Well, like when it comes to training too, like what a lot of people don't realize, like you think that you could just teach something and you can retain it, but it doesn't really work like that. Like that's not how your brain works. Like you can't just watch one thing and just remember it forever. Like whenever you actually train stuff, like I'm sure everyone has had an experience where they experienced something super traumatic. Like I got 8 months after transferring to this department, I was working patrol and I got in an officer involved shooting.
Yeah, I remember.
And yeah, it happened fast. I mean, we were my partner and I. It's actually another unit got dispatched to a fight downtown, and the partner that I was working with and I we started heading over there because we were closer. So we pulled up right in front of this big hotel bar, and the security guards pointing at these two guys across the street, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, these are the guys. These are the ones that were involved in the fight." And so they look at us, me and my partner, and they take off in different directions. So I chose one, and my partner started chasing the other. And so I'm chasing them on foot, just like I've done plenty of times before. You know, I'd been a cop for 8 years at this point. And I'm chasing this guy through an alley, and he slips and falls. And just as I'm about to just jump on top of him, take him into custody, he pulls a gun from his waistband and fires a round from about, me to you, less than 5-10 feet. And the round buzzes past my head, and I end up returning fire, and it worked out where I didn't get hit. It was really close, but it was a super scary situation. Well,
Sketchy.
Super sketchy. And so, but that like trauma response that I had, I mean, I can tell you everything that I did that day. I can tell you that I took my kids to a bowling game at one of their friends' birthdays the afternoon before. I can tell you how far along my wife was with our youngest kid, and she was, due in 2 months. And there was just all these things that happened before and after that my brain still remembers, because it'll remember those things in those like trauma responses. And I think it's part of just human nature, and just trying to, like, your survival instinct is that you don't want to, or you want to be able to survive something like that if it does happen again. So your brain tends to remember those types of trauma responses more. And so it's almost like, and we try and incorporate that into our training too. So when we do training, things like Red Man or a sustained conflict or a hood drill or whatever, it creates that intensity or that intense environment where somebody is scared and they have that fear response. And it's in a controlled area where, we have padded rooms, we have trained instructors that they're working with and whatnot, but it's still going to give them that fear response. So it gives that intensity. And I heard a Navy SEAL talk about this before on another podcast, but he said that in the SEALs, they really train that there has to be intensity, novelty, and focus in order for you to really retain and remember something, to build those like neural pathways in the brain. And so, and that's what we try and build into our training, is not just cookie cutter, come in, go through these motions 5 times and then check, assign the roster and then go home early for the day. We really try and build in a lot more reality-based training and scenarios to where the officers or whoever is getting trained, because we train community members too. I mean, we'll bring in even the DA's office. We come in and we work with them usually once a year. We'll bring them through and we'll put them through scenarios and whatnot. But building that kind of intense situation where there is a little bit of fear factor and they are scared, and then they have to make those decisions, and then afterwards debrief and remember and talk about all that, because that's really what helps some of the knowledge and the things that we're trying to teach stick, and not just tell them like, hey, you need to do this next time. Good. Okay, bye. Yeah. If we build in a little bit of that reality-based scenario training, it really helps some of that content stick in the brain a lot better, is what we found.
I'm curious, I'm not like a neurobiologist, but I'm sure you've seen this also where, so you're talking about when in your shooting and how you guys like basically super focused and you remember every single detail of it. But have you seen, I've seen the opposite happen as well, which is where someone goes, what, they call condition black, where like, it's like, there's nothing there and they're shut down in full panic mode. And then you ask them about it later on and they have no clue what they did or what happened or what occurred. And I've seen that happen in training environment too, when we're running like simulations with like academies and we're running a scenario and you can just see that they're not there anymore. And then they do some really weird, crazy thing. And you ask them like, well, why'd you do that? And they have no recollection of it. Yeah. And, is that like a line you have to walk, or how do you? It's
from what we've learned in some of the just like force science courses and things that we've been to before, is that you really perform best with stress. So I mean, if you're just sitting in bed and you just woke up, I mean, you're at a low stress level. It's kind of like a bell curve, right? So like you're going to be at that low stress level, nothing's really affecting you. You're not going to perform best there. But once you get that adrenaline up, you get your body warmed up, you're going to be able to perform at a higher level of performance whenever you have a little bit of that stress response. But then if you start getting too much of it, you start coming down on the other side of that bell curve. And if you have too much of an adrenaline dump and you haven't trained for it and your body isn't prepared for that type of an environment, then you're going to start going into, they call it going into the black. And you just start getting to where your body just shuts down and you're not going to be able to formulate a response or get off the X or return fire or stay engaged in a fight, because you're just going to be so emotionally overwhelmed that you can't handle yourself and you just freeze and lock up. So yeah, we do see that sometimes.
So you just have to kind of cater the training to the person. Because like,
Yeah,
the
for
thing is,
sure.
like some people have different, stress response levels. It's like when you get in your shooting, like you said, you've been an officer for almost 10 years and,
Right.
and you have a fight background and like a little bit more, accustomed to like stressful, dangerous situations than maybe your average person. And so it would make sense that you would have that like kind of dialed in focus. Whereas someone who is like, doesn't have that same background and kind of brand new gets put in that situation, it might just, completely overwhelm them.
Yeah,
So-
one of the first few days in our academies, we have some officers that have been involved in some pretty heinous officer-involved shootings come in and they debrief the shootings that they've been in.
Oh,
and,
good.
And a lot of them are.
I started doing that with like Nick's class.
There's a lot of videos and whatnot because I mean, there's no shortage of officer-involved shooting videos on the internet anymore. Like since body cameras became a thing, there's just a plethora of videos to learn and train from all over the internet. So one of these officers, he was on FTO on his first phase of FTO, and he had just gotten out of the academy. We have a 2 to 3 week mini academy afterwards where it's just kind of some department specific stuff that they do, and then they're out in the field with their FTO. And he was just a couple weeks in, and they went to as a domestic disturbance call. A son was attacking his mom, and they ended up having to make entry into this house, and he was actively stabbing his mom.
Yeah,
and
they did a
this
crisis
officer-
entry on a hostage,
Yeah, and this-
hostage situation.
and this officer had to take basically a hostage shot,
Yeah.
2 weeks out of the academy. So,
Yeah.
I mean, he had no experience
Yeah.
and he was able to go through and perform it. And talking to him afterwards, he told us, he's like, hey, sir, it was just like going through one of the scenarios in the academy. Like, I felt like I just went immediately into that like scenario mode and just did what I knew I had to do. And he actually performed better than some of the officers that were there that had years of experience, because he recognized the threat. He knew that he was legally justified and he made the decision to use force and he used it. And it worked out well. And he saved that lady's life. And it's a really good story for the academy to hear that, like, hey, this can happen, 10 years in, 20 years in, or it can happen 2 weeks in, as soon as you get out into the field.
Yeah, as soon as you get out there.
Yeah.
Nice. I wanted to ask you about like, because you guys deal in the use of force world, but like how force is in law enforcement, how force is classified, and how we like explain different types of force, like everything from your physical command presence all the way up to and including like deadly force, and how that's all broken down. Like, what do we do? Like, how do we break that down? What are the different like options, I guess, or tools, and like how are they classified, and what is the purpose behind that?
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, case law defines it as there's deadly force, there's less than lethal force, and there's non-deadly force. That's basically like the three categories. At our department, we break it down a little bit further to where we have four categories. So there's like a minimal force, a controlling force, intermediate force, and deadly force. So if you break down all of our levels, so a level 1 minimal force, and this is kind of pending some policy revisions that we've been going through with our department. We've been working closely with a California DOJ monitor under a stipulated judgment. So we've been in the process of working with some monitor companies from the Cal DOJ for the last few years and developing these things and developing this policy. So this is a little bit preemptive to what's actually current in our department now, but
We'll hold the episode till they update the policy.
yeah, it'll be soon, I
It's gonna be a
promise. Yeah. So like with minimal force, this is where it's more capturing data. So it's like anytime you point a firearm at someone, it is technically a seizure or use of force. And so that needs to be captured somehow. And so that's, you could point a gun at somebody and then they could comply and there's no physical force that gets used afterwards, but that data still needs to be captured. And so that's where it gets classified as like a minimal force.
Let me ask you: is it only if they know they have a gun pointed at them?
That
came up on a call last week.
yeah, I had
that
this
involved
I
in.
had this conversation.
I've had multiple phone calls about this actually.
I had quite a few phone calls about it as well. And my opinion of it is it should be the officer's perspective. If the officer intentionally points their firearm at somebody, then it should be captured as a minimal use of force, whether the person knows about it or not.
Gotcha. Okay.
If the officer's making that decision, then they should be capturing it as
Yeah.
minimal use of force.
I feel like I'm being too ambiguous. So we had a SWAT call out where there was a use of force at the end of it, but leading up to that, there was a whole SWAT team and then a bunch of patrol officers and people who had previously pointed guns at this person for the thing that they had done. And then at the end of it, they were trying to capture. It was like, well, if we were going to, every time someone pointed a gun at him, we were going to include that in this use of force report. It was going to be some ridiculous number, like 30 or more, probably.
One, you got to
And-
think like a SWAT sniper that's posted up on a roof somewhere, and he's watching this guy through a scope. He's pointing his gun at him 45 times.
And that was the other
duration
question
of
too.
call
It's
out.
like, well, he's technically pointing a rifle, but also is it for the purpose of gaining control or using force in this person, or as a sniper, most of what you do, like 99.99% of what you do is just observing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're using the scope as a observation tool, and it has that deadly force component and option. But like, how often do police snipers actually shoot and engage people? It's like very rare, but they do provide a lot of information and like live intelligence. So anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
No, and I think with the outcome of that one, it's almost like there's a caveat with like barricades and SWAT situations where if this is just part of how and you're way more proficient on the tactical side of things. So if this is the method that we want to surround a house and have guns pointed at it, like, does it make sense to capture every single one of those? No, probably not.
Yeah.
But more on like the individualized basis, if an officer intentionally points their gun at somebody, whether the person knows it or not, because somebody could be running away, have their back turned, and the officer could be running at him with his gun pointed out, and I mean that technically should be classified as a minimal use of force according to the new policy.
Yeah.
There's other things that get captured as minimal force, like minor hands-on techniques. If an officer uses a control hold or a body weight or a takedown to overcome somebody's resistance, but it doesn't result in any injuries or anything like that, then that's technically a minimal force.
So is that a level higher than pointing a firearm, or is it the same level?
It'd be the same,
Okay.
same level.
Gotcha.
And there's other things, like if they apply some auxiliary restraints, like if they use we have like a hobble that'll basically like secure someone's feet together. If they use something like that, it's another thing that's like an additional application of a force type, so it gets captured in the minimal force option. Then if you move up to controlling force, that's more your hands-on techniques. So it's anything like body weight control holds, takedowns. Sometimes you can use a baton as like a leverage tool to try and like pry somebody's arm out from underneath them. But these controlling force techniques are the ones that we work with the most, the ones we rely on the most. We call it's kind of like your foundation.
Yeah.
Like whenever we're teaching all these use of force techniques, we teach them as much as we can in a 6-month academy, and we have, voluntary open mat sessions, and we find as many opportunities as we can to provide training, but we're always going to be limited by resources, time, and money. And if the officer themselves doesn't make the decision to come in and train, then they're not going to be as proficient as if someone were to come in and do some training.
Yeah.
But all of those hands-on techniques are the foundation of what an officer needs whenever they get into use of force. So controlling force, grabbing hold of somebody, using a control hold, taking them to the ground with a takedown, even if they get scuffed up, injured, or whatever, like that's typically going to be a controlling force classification.
Yeah.
As you move up, there's a lot more case laws that start getting looped into the decision models on what gets classified as higher levels of force. So intermediate force, basically any tool that an officer in our department carries is an intermediate force option. So a taser, OC spray, a baton, we have 40 millimeter impact munitions. All those things are classified as intermediate force. And there's a higher threshold on what the person or the suspect has to be doing in order to use those levels of force. So if someone's just passively non-compliant, they're not posing a threat, they're not assaultive to the officer or anyone else, those are pretty much out the window. Like they can't be using those. But
just because if they're sitting there but not doing what you're telling them, you can't just come up and start clubbing them like a baby seal.
Right. And I mean, and it's still, it all comes down to, was it objectively reasonable under the totality of the circumstances?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's Graham versus Connor is the case law that establishes, like, was it objectively reasonable under the totality of the circumstances? Because even what you described, if there's somebody just sitting there, like, was there a whole lot of stuff that led up to it before that? Did he just kill his family and now there's a firearm sitting right next to him and he's just sitting there?
Of course, yeah.
But
that was definitely an oversimplification on my part.
But that's why the best response to so many of these questions when it comes to like, well, what's classified as this, what's classified as that, is like, well, it depends. Like that's almost like a go-to answer when you're asking use of force questions is, well, it kind of depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Because you can't just generalize, you can't overgeneralize
I understand
classifications of force. But the good thing is that there are a lot of clearly established case laws that we use and we become more familiar with over the years. And we use a lot of really good organizations. Our department subscribes to the briefing room, and we use a lot of their trainings usually every day in briefing, where they do a great job of breaking down the content of a use of force encounter. They play the actual footage from the Ninth Circuit or whatever circuit court makes the decision on whether the officers are receiving qualified immunity or not, and really just simplifying these decisions down to digestible short videos that officers can understand. The California Force Instructors Association, or CalFIA, is a really great organization that has brought a lot of use of force experts together, and they build a lot of training and foundational information on just what types of force can be classified as what, and how officers should be performing in their in the field, and how they should be getting trained. So that's another really good organization that helps with deciding a lot of these force decisions. And then obviously once you get into deadly force, there's been a lot of work and legislation that's gone into that, because it's going to be the most highly scrutinized. Is when you have to use the decision to use deadly force, you're having to be able to prove that the person posed an imminent threat of death or great bodily injury to you or someone else. And there's a whole lot of more components to it. You have to be able to support it by Penal Code 835A, which basically says that they had the ability, the opportunity, and the apparent intent to cause death or great bodily injury. And so, I mean, there's like levels that you have to break these things down and see, like, okay, well, did they have all of this to justify the use of deadly force or whatnot? So, I mean, it's kind of a long answer, but it's sort of how things get broken down into, for us, 4 levels of force.
Okay, because we used to use the term injuring. I guess you've replaced injuring kind of with intermediary. And
It's the same, injuring or intermediate.
So like on the federal side, you'll see in court, like Granby Connor, non-deadly, deadly, intermediate. That's what they have. California Post has controlling, intermediate, deadly, very similar category. But what separates is the risk of injury. So you can have the same. I'm going to use an example of my hands. Controlling, it's the risk of injury. Any force that is not likely to cause any injury. Momentary pain, sure, but like, so the hands, I can arm drag to a double leg. It's controlling force.
Yeah.
But once we move to the risk of injury increases, if I start striking someone, it's now gone from there's reasonable risk of injury here. So same tool could be used as controlling, could be intermediate. It depends on the risk factor to suspect.
Yeah.
Followed by deadly. Same hands now are choking a guy unconscious.
Yeah.
It's
pick him up and slam on his head.
Or slam on concrete suplex.
Yeah.
It's the risk factor of injury that will determine that use of force. Any of the tools technically could fall on that.
Yeah.
Different wording, controlling versus non-deadly.
Yeah. But I mean, you're probably not going to take your pepper spray out and use it as like a handcuffing tool,
like a pressure point tool maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So then that's another change. Where pepper spray used to be considered a quote unquote controlling, and then it got moved to the intermediary or injuring, which is interesting. For me personally, it doesn't matter because I try to avoid the stuff at all costs. Like it's good
you're like most cops then.
It's like dogs, on dogs, and that's about it. Dogs in the open air.
Yep.
Then I'll use it. It doesn't work on chickens, by the way.
They're immune.
Unless those bad boys are cooked up and it's buffalo sauce.
Yeah, just add some seasoning.
Yeah, we have a lot of cockfighting here where we're from, and I encountered an aggressive chicken on a chain one time, and it was trying to come at me, and I was trying to get around it. And I thought if I squirted it, it would go away. It had no effect. Just FYI.
It's good knowledge.
Spray. If you're a pepper spray chicken, it doesn't work.
We'll take it out of our training.
I think, take that out of
whoops, scratch that one.
So there's deadly force, and the deadly force, like for me, is it's too broad of a category. The way it gets broken down, and maybe you can kind of shed light on this, is like, I think about like we've had officers say that is like weighs 100 pounds, but is not strong enough to pull themselves over, or barely strong enough to pull themselves over the wall. Like we have the 6 foot wall they have to climb. So not a lot of upper body strength. If that person uses like a small scale, like an asp collapsible baton, and does it and like strikes you with one hand in the head with the asp baton, that's technically deadly force, unless I'm mistaken, right?
You're not mistaken.
And so I think of that. I'm like, okay, well, like I used to be, I was a sniper at one point. We shoot 308s. If I shoot a person with a 308 in the cranial vault, you know, it would basically almost pretty much take your head completely off, right? And that's also obviously deadly force, right? But I think that those two incidents are so far apart, whereas like one might not even leave a mark, whereas one will obviously kill you.
Yeah.
And I struggle with like how are these in the same category? Like this isn't even the same sport. It's
Yeah. There's like deadly and super deadly, possible
Yeah.
deadly,
Yeah, there
super
needs to be a
deadly.
super deadly
I used to
category.
push this idea like kind of half jokingly that we need a deadly-ish force category. And it came to my mind once I was watching, it's probably 10 years ago. It's a famous video on the internet you could find where I can't even remember what the guy had done, but this guy's like armed with a gun and he had done some felony crime and these officers are following behind him. He's walking down the middle of the street and it's like a dash cam video from the like number one car. And this guy's probably 40, 50 feet in front of the patrol car and he's like following along and the guy's not complying. He's got a gun. And you see from off camera, another patrol car just come in and full send into this guy and hits him with the front of the car. You've probably seen the video.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy goes flying up on the hood or whatever. And so that guy lived, you know, he was injured. He got hurt pretty bad. But he survived. And I thought, that's actually kind of a good technique. And, you know, some people, the comment section are vary from like, this is terrible to like, you know, like muscle American flag, thumbs up,
Yeah.
you know, but I think like that officer probably saved that person's life. And because typically when a scenario like that goes down where they've committed whatever crime, they're going to be arrested, they're armed, they're refusing to drop the weapon. And they're like, there's going to at some point be some kind of firing line of officers giving commands. And then this person is either going to shoot at the officers and then be shot and most likely killed by multiple officers, or raise the weapon or present some deadly force threat that's going to cause them to respond. And then they're going to shoot him and he's probably going to die. And by this guy coming in and just Leroy Jenkins right into him with the patrol car, like when you do that, you could say like, that's considered deadly force because could it kill someone to hit him with a car? And the answer is yes. But is it as likely to kill him as a firing line of officers? Like absolutely not. And so it's like, and I was like, it's deadly, but it's more of like deadly-ish, right? And like if that were my loved one, you know, if that were someone who was important to me and who went off the rails one day, like I would want the police to do whatever they could to not kill this person, you know, and if that meant hitting him with a car to save his life, well, like I'm pretty okay with that. And so I encountered like a bunch of situations like this throughout the years where I thought like, well, there's this technique that I know of that I think I'm about 90% sure it would solve this, but like I'm kind of hesitant to use this because it would be technically deadly force. And then one of the arguments is like, if you're just going to do that, then like you should just be shooting, like, cause that's the deadly force option. And I don't know, I tend to disagree. Like another example, and I won't get into the details, was a call I was on, where this guy was like borderline, are we justified to shoot this person or not? And he was coming out and back and forth with a SWAT call out. And I remember it kind of occurring to me is like, we have these 40 millimeters, the direct impact blue bullets or whatever. Obviously, you're familiar with those. And when you shoot those, I call them adult Nerf guns because I have a problem with it. They like never work. I've never seen them work, but whatever. Anyways, we have these 40 millimeters, and I remember thinking like he's out in the open. Like, what if we? And this is just occurring in my head, right? I'm not voicing this until I asked somebody about it later on, so I didn't take this action. But I was just thinking to myself, like, what if we shot him in the head with a 40? And I talked about it with someone afterwards. And like, well, if you're just going to shoot him in the head with a 40, that's deadly force because that's designed to be hit in the body. It's a not injuring, but a intermediate force.
Right.
But if you shoot someone in the head with it, now it becomes deadly force, right? It's like a baton is intermediate force, but if I baton you in the head, now it's deadly force. And I thought like, yeah. And it could, technically, shooting someone in the head with this impact round could kill them, sure, but it's probably not going to. And I have a feeling like there's a really good chance I might just be able to knock this guy unconscious, and then we could just go over there and arrest him, and like disarm him and arrest him, and probably save his life. But if we drag this thing out longer and let this go back and forth, and he gets more and more agitated and more, you know, smokes more and more meth as he goes back inside, like the chances of us having to shoot and kill this person go up the longer we wait and the more we delay on this. And anyways, those are just kind of like just stream of consciousness thoughts about force.
An even wider gap of like what California says choking, carotid restraint is deadly force.
Yeah.
We're prohibited from teaching that. So you have a guy who is armed with a knife and your partner's wrestling, try to hold the knife.
Yeah.
You want me to shoot him instead of choking him out.
Yeah.
Like trained with choking that We have gyms here. Kids are even trading chokes. You don't
Yeah.
trust an officer, but
Yeah, it's all because of George Floyd.
supposedly,
But
yeah.
it's bad information, and politicians making ill-informed decisions.
Yes.
Is what it is, because
Yeah, because
obviously
if you train in the fight world, you've been choked out.
yeah, I've been choked unconscious.
been
I've choked
choked-
many people unconscious.
Yeah.
I've seen hundreds, maybe even thousands of people choked unconscious through televised MMA fights, through actually training, and none of them have died.
No.
And so
Yeah, you
it's-
wake up like 5 seconds later, and it's like someone hit the reset button. 'Cause
Yeah.
when you wake up, you don't know why you're where you are
Yeah,
or
you're
what
confused.
happened.
You
Like,
have a funny taste in your mouth usually.
going on?
And then the
Depending on
clouds
who your
start
friends
to drift
are.
away. Yeah, depending on who your friends are. And then the clouds start to drift away, and then you realize like, oh, I just went out.
Yeah.
And you start to come back to. But yeah, it's clear whenever that law came out that it was politicians that had never trained in combatives, had never done jujitsu, they'd never been exposed to a carotid restraint or
Yeah.
rear naked choke or whatever they wanted to call it.
And it's
that
real.
made
It's
these
actually a
decisions.
very merciful technique. Of all the things that could happen
really
to
is.
you, like you're just scenario you're describing, it's like you want me to shoot this person, or what's the other option? You want me to like bludgeon them and like break something on them, like really hurt them
It was
in order to get them to
actually-
stop, or just make them take a brief nap and then wake up in handcuffs.
Right.
Probably one of the most humane force options that
Yeah.
you could do to someone that potentially could, cause death, great bodily injury, whatever. If you could put them unconscious and then put them in handcuffs and then stop the fight and stop everything, like it was a great tool that we lost in law enforcement.
But on the philosophy side, I'm gonna throw it from a different angle. I love our boys in blue. Don't hear me pushing against that.
It's okay
But-
if you do.
Government. I'm still like, hey, laissez-faire, hands-off government, even though being government, that there's always going to be rogue people in every profession. So thinking through what should the laws be for rogue cop that has your father, he's going to go arrest your father for whatever, that it's bad information. What legally do we want to equip them with? So car example, if like, let's make that less deadly. And rogue cop's like, that dude's walk away from me. I hit him with a less than deadly. You're like, bro, that was deadly force. You know what I mean? So you want to
Oh,
make
I
the
see. So you're
laws
pushing back against the
some
Yeah,
way to where protect from rogueness at the same time equipping officers who are doing a good job protecting them. It's like it's kind of a hard line because I also don't want to give government, even though I'm part of government, too much for corruption.
Yeah. No, and I don't know the answer. This is just me throwing problems out without solutions. But I feel like the deadly force is just too broad of a category. Like when I give the example of like the small, weak upper body strength officer doing a one-handed axe strike being counted as deadly force, as the same as like a sniper with a 50 cal, which we have 50 cals, shooting a 50 cal, like being a deadly force option. Like those are not the same sport. And it's just like maybe there could be, I don't know, deadly force like 1 through 10, or like I don't know, like.
Well, you can almost even break it down into even keeping the force tool a firearm and just depending on the proficiency of the officer, right? You got a 20-year SWAT veteran range instructor and they get into a shooting, they're probably going to be pretty proficient with their gun, but you get some, didn't really care about range training, barely passed with the bare minimums, doesn't do any dry fire practice, hasn't been to the range, since the last quarterly qual and barely gets by and has to remediate. They get into a shooting. I mean, they're going to be less than deadly as well.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm thinking through the opposite now. Okay, we just do this. We change all the laws. Then you have suspect who's batoning someone, even an officer who's like down, and cop comes and
Stick.
shoots, and it's gonna be like, oh, you guys labeled baton to the head less than deadly. Why'd you shoot this guy? And then we're like, well, there was a substantial risk of great bodily injury or death. It's like, well, wait, you have different categories of
Yeah,
deadly.
and I don't think I'm advocating to change the label of a head batoning to not deadly
Sure.
force. I'm saying it is, but it's just as far as like likelihood, it's so
Right.
much less likely. Like a soft ass strike to the head is so much less likely than a 308 to the brain.
Right.
So
There's definitely nuances to it, and I think like for us, the important thing is from the training side is there's the laws, and the laws are there, they're on the books, and the better we can understand the laws and share that message and that like knowledge with officers to where they understand them and they can make the decisions. Because I mean, we work in training, like yes, we get exposed in the field every now and then, but the officers that are out there every single day that are making the decisions, like we want to make sure that they're the ones that are informed and confident in making their decisions and understand the law and the capabilities that they can do and what they can't do, and that the law is going to support them whenever they make those decisions. Because the scary thing is you get a 21-year-old kid that just goes through an academy and they have no life experience, and all of a sudden you give them that gun and that badge and they're out in the field and they're making these decisions. And I like your perspective of, okay, well, if it's my family member that's on the other side of this, law enforcement encounter, like what would I want for my family member? And I think that the more that we kind of push that perspective shift to the officers too, to like, hey, is this how you would want your family member to be treated? Is this how you would want your mom to be treated if she got contacted by the police? And because I mean, there's a legal requirement that you show a sanctity for human life and that you have a duty to render aid after using force and all these things. And so making sure that officers understand that and get that perspective shift of, if they do end up having to use force, being confident in their knowledge of the law and in their abilities, so that they can use force, they can use it effectively, and then afterwards, then that's flip switches, and then it's time to like turn on the compassion switch and like, okay, now if this was my family member, how would I want them to be treated by a random law enforcement officer? And making sure that they're going through and doing all those things, because what we've seen and this is what we've kind of been pushing through our advanced officer training. So if anybody hasn't gone to AO school yet, don't watch this episode. But we've been pushing.
Make sure you sign the pink roster.
Yeah. Just plug your ears right now. That's all. Still watch.
We did a lot of research on case laws specific to like prone restraints, and there was been a lot of case laws that have gone up to the Ninth Circuit and other circuit courts where people have died in custody, and the officers haven't used any force other than basically body weight and control holds. So that controlling force category that we were talking about earlier, now this person dies in custody, and they're saying like the application of body weight may have been a contributing factor in their death. And I mean, in most cases, it's probably a drug overdose. They've probably been, on drugs their whole life, and their heart finally gave out under a high level of stress. But now it's an in custody death because the officers are involved in using force at the time that they die. So these cases are going up to the circuit courts, and these officers haven't been getting qualified immunity in some circumstances because it's citing their pre-planning tactics. It's citing their rendering aid after they recognize that the person is no longer breathing or is going into like a medical emergency, and their extended application of body weight on the thoracic cavity where it could be impacting or affecting their ability to breathe. So a lot of the things that we've been teaching, and a lot of the jiu-jitsu based techniques, especially, even if the person is fighting and we're trying to control them, is using a lot of more joint lock techniques. And I think that we've gotten pretty good to where darn near everybody in the department is on the same page. If someone is fighting and they're in a use of force, every officer kind of knows a role. Historically, there used to be a way of getting into use of force, and you'd hear someone fighting on the radio and all these cops would show up, and then it was just like a dog pile, and like no cops knew what they were doing. Maybe one of them had some wrestling experience or something, but everybody just jumped on this dog pile until they got control, and who knows how long it took.
Everybody's pulling different directions.
Oh yeah,
working against each other.
100% working against each other. I'm pulling your leg this way as he's pulling your arm that way, and now I'm perceiving it as, oh, he's resisting still because Matt's pulling his arm this way. Yeah. So we've gotten a lot better at pushing a team tactics model where there's like designated roles on the person's body to take, controlling the upper body, controlling the arms. And then if you come up and you're that third officer or that second officer and you see that there's two officers controlling the arms, oh, okay, I better go control the legs. And if you're the fourth officer on scene and these three officers are in their designated little spots and they're still struggling, like, oh, I'm going to go up and I'm going to control this person's head because so I can keep their head down, their body's going to stay down. And then it's been really effective. And we've seen in our reviews in these working group meetings, we see way more often than not that officers are doing a really good job, and they're really proficient in some of these controlling force techniques like team tactics, and then getting the person into a position where they can breathe. Like as soon as they get put into handcuffs, at least internally in our department, our officers do a really good job of recognizing like, okay, they're in custody and they're in handcuffs. And then it's almost like that, like that clarity, like they take a breath and that's like, okay, now we can like reassess and do what we need to do. It's almost like a shift of that perspective. Like, okay, like the fight was on, now it's time just to like get this person in the car, take care of them, finish our investigation. But they do a really good job of getting into those designated roles in use of force and controlling someone with everyone being on the same page, pretty much from what they get taught in the academy to the mini academy to these advanced officer schools, making sure that they're getting all the same stuff. It's not like, hey, we're going to teach this group of officers this technique and this group of officers this technique and just kind of see what works best. They all kind of get taught the same thing across the board, and it's at least for the basics, it's the same thing, and they get it, and it works pretty well whenever they get into the field and kind of all understand different roles on what they need to do whenever use of force does happen.
George Washington once said, "Stay strapped and get clapped." Probably. That's why I always carry concealed. Do you carry concealed, or do you own a firearm for self-defense? If so, you might want to consider Firearms Legal Protection. FLP is a legal defense fund which pays for your legal fees if you are involved in a self-defense incident. That includes your criminal defense and covers you if you are sued civilly. With plans starting as low as $10 a month for our viewers, go ahead and check out our link in the description for more information. Do you guys, Matt and I had talked a little bit before we turned on about, I won't go into the name of the group, the training group, but I said that, like, I think we could discard like 70% of the training. I really enjoy the handcuffing techniques. I think that those are good techniques, but all of the self-defense stuff and pretty much all of the baton stuff, or most of it, I was not impressed with. And like the self-defense stuff, it's like, what is it like? Counter to a roundhouse punch from the left and to the right, and like these techniques that weren't good.
Catch the wrist.
Yeah.
Go under.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of dance fighting.
Well,
A lot of
like
dance
you
fighting,
just
and I thought, like, why we even?
yeah.
Well, when it was taught to me, I was like, this is being taught by someone who's never actually been in a fight, because this is not going to work. And,
Well, like, so you'll have such limited time, never enough for training.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, you would train weekly, guaranteed.
and that's why I wouldn't want to
daily.
waste time on just silly
Yes.
techniques.
Right.
So look at what's actually being used for fight.
Yeah.
Watch UFC.
Yeah.
How many times is wrist throws happening?
Yeah.
It's not. So use for handcuffing a system that works for handcuffing. Use for fighting, system that works for fighting. For ground fighting, separate. But for knife fighting, for gun fighting, like, go to those sources who are good at what they do. Take from it, train your guys.
Knife fighting. I just imagine, like, was it Michael Jackson song, the music video where they
No, their hands are taped together. Yeah.
Thriller?
No,
No, it was bad.
I think it was bad.
Yeah. It's before Matt's time.
Grew up in the desert, under a rock,
Yeah.
not church music.
We shouldn't be doing any knife fighting techniques, I don't think.
Well, I think I don't know if we can say people like EFC stuff with their knife fighting, how they're just like disengage, point, and run.
Yeah.
I like that stuff.
Yeah, there's a. I was listening to some people talk about the difference between like fighting someone with a gun and fighting someone with a knife. If you are fighting someone with a knife, it's a short range weapon, and if depending on your distance from where they're at, you are probably best just to open your hips, turn, and run away than to try and go in and engage this person with a knife, because you're going to get cut. Like you're going to get poked no matter what, basically, in a knife fight.
Yeah. We had Eric
versus-
Self on talking about getting stabbed.
Yeah, he got stabbed over by the mall.
It was brutal. And he is not like, there's some people that, like, you think, like, okay, they probably wouldn't do too well on a fight or whatever. He's not that guy.
Right.
Like, he is a big, scary monster who knows how to handle himself. And yeah, he got cut pretty bad. He almost
got.
He got got. And and he almost lost that one too. But
Yeah, I mean, that's, if it happens, it's good to have officers have one go-to. So, but right now, there's no knife fighting academy. Maybe an AO school.
Yeah, we have a shock knife that we do use in training sometimes, where it's a knife and it's got a 9-volt battery in it.
yeah,
it has
gives
like
you
a
little buzz.
little buzz of electricity
to let you know if you got got.
Oh, yeah.
and then we'll incorporate that into some reality training every now and then, like so they can make sure they know they got.
Nice. Nice. What else, Nick?
And some of the use of force inspections that we do, I mean, obviously we see.
Yeah, what are some of the things that you see that are good? Some of the
We
things
see a lot of
not
things.
so good.
Yeah, no, we see a lot of things.
So use of force inspections, like you talked about before, there's use of force incident. A supervisor, a sergeant will come out,
Investigate.
do a supervisor investigation of that use of force. They'll write it up on their end. They'll review all the reports, make sure everything jives, watch all the body cam video, make sure all that jives. And then once they've got their investigation done, they send it to the lieutenant. Lieutenant reviews it, and then it'll come over to you guys. You guys will then review it and then make your assessments.
Yeah. I mean, that pretty much covers everything. I mean, once a use of force happens, the investigation begins. The sergeant comes out. They have to do everything. They talk to the officers. They talk to all the involved people. I mean, a couple weeks ago, there was a use of force where it was this massive
Melee.
block party
Yeah.
fight that took place, and the information was coming out that there was people unconscious and there was people down bleeding, and the helicopter was up above providing some live updates. So officers kind of had to go in and take some action. It wasn't one where they could just sit back and wait for things to calm down. Like there was potentially some people in there that needed help. So they went in there and obviously dealing with a bunch of intoxicated people, a lot of family members and whatnot. And so once they find out who the aggressors are or who the suspects are that need to start getting taken into custody, they start grabbing onto them and putting them into custody, and the uses of force start happening, and then the family members start getting involved because they get mad that you're taking uncle to jail, and then so there's more uses of force and they get involved. So
Everybody's just amped up on Modelo.
yeah, and so I mean, luckily it all ended pretty well without anybody getting seriously hurt or anything like that. But it was just a melee of work for the supervisor to go have to do afterwards, where it's like, gosh, now I got to go talk to all these officers, figure out who all was involved, who did what, and interview all these suspects. There's going to be a ton of witnesses everywhere, but now I got to try and wrangle all these witnesses in. Is there surveillance footage? Like I got to dock all these officers' body cameras, review the body camera footage, make sure that the reports are accurate to what they are saying and what it shows on the body camera. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of work that the sergeant has to do that I think that a lot of people don't realize. That's where they earn their paycheck for sure. I mean, there's a lot of times where the sergeant gig is easy money, and you can just hang out and show up to calls. You don't have to take the reports. You're not driving people to jail. But whenever those big uses of force happen and now you have to become a detective again and you're doing a full-on investigation, that's where you really earn your paycheck. Yeah. And, there's some that do it really well, and there's some that could do it better. But they're in NIA too. But yeah, I digress. So then once everything gets approved by the sergeant and the lieutenant looks at it and approves it, sometimes the captain, just depending on the level of force, then it'll get routed to us in the working group. And we're kind of looking at it from a different lens. We're looking specifically at the arrest and control techniques. We're looking specifically at the officer safety stuff and just seeing if we can find areas where the officers can be improved, or maybe there's things that they don't know that we can teach them or provide them to make them safer, make them more effective. One of the CalFIA models, or the California Force Instructors Association, their mission is better training means better policing. And so, I mean, if we can find these training opportunities and we can provide it as much as we can and give these officers better training, then they're going to be better cops. Like they're going to go out into the field, they're going to police better, and there's going to be a result of better protected communities. So, I mean, it's a trickle effect that happens, and we like to take it really seriously on the training side that we can find these things and we can make officers better and make communities safer by identifying these opportunities and providing training for them.
I think of it like say that the use of force incident was like a test, and you're maybe you're calling an officer in for additional training or whatever you review, not because they got an F on the test, maybe they got like a B, and you're calling them in because you want them to get an A. It's like, you were within policy, like you didn't break the law, but like here's some things that could have been done a little bit better if you would have tried this technique or done this way.
Yeah, so Sarge said it right. The lens that we're viewing, it's not IA, it's not judgment in the sense of like you suck. It's strictly for one purpose: improvement for their safety and community safety. And so we try to be very diligent to say, hey, dude, like we're all gonna make mistakes. I don't care. We go 10-8 right now, we're gonna make a mistake, but we don't have enough training. This is a divine appointment of how can we improve. You could have even gotten an A, a 99%. We're just looking for that 100 because that 1% might literally be a move that will save you down the road. Even we had an officer come in, learn a Kimura, and then 2 nights later goes and does it beautiful.
Yeah, did a perfect Kimura.
And it's like, hey, thanks guys, this was helpful. Who knows if that's going to then save him for when someone actually is trying to grab something.
You guys teach to Kimura on the side of the gun?
It depends.
We teach both because you're not always given that opportunity to, I have this ability. He's grabbing this side. He's grabbing this side. You train both. I
think of my final Red Man when I was in the academy, and I got into the Red Man, the instructor had like knocked me down, and then we went to the ground and I got into a north-south where I was on top, and I'm a right-handed shooter, and I went for a Kimura on his left arm. So I'm in north-south. I go for a Kimura on the left arm, and I got it deep, and I'm coming up with this Kimura, and I hear the sound, like the distinct sound of a gun coming out of a holster, and I hear him say, boom, 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 boom. And I look over, and he's got the gun out, and he's like, and I'm failing the scenario. So it's like, and I was like,
You're
if this is
style,
if this
though.
is a
Good.
fight, like I'm obviously winning this fight. I'm beating you. Like
Sure.
I'm kicking your fucking ass right here. And no, I just lost. It's like you pulled my flag. I was like so angry.
It's
like,
good.
But anyway,
that's
some of
good.
my part of the Kimura is like, I wasn't protecting my gun side.
Well, no,
I
it
got
is.
out.
What's the priority? Is he reaching for a weapon versus I can see his hands? I want control.
Yeah. In my mind, in that incident, I just wanted to beat the instructor. But
And it's almost like any more, like we said before, there's so much footage out there. I mean, every officer in the United States darn near is wearing a body camera. And so there's so much footage out there that, I mean, what do professional athletes do after a game? They go back, they watch their footage, they critique themselves, they get advice from their coaches, they get advice from their teammates on how to do better. They could have won the game and they could have, scored record amount of touchdowns. They're still going to go back and they're going to watch that tape and they're going to see how they can do it better next time. They're going to break down in slow motion their footwork, their movements, and just find out ways that they can improve. And that's all we try and do with these reviews is almost like, I mean, cops to an extent are professional athletes. They're paid to go out there and do physical tasks.
Yeah.
And so coming back through and reviewing their body camera footage, reviewing the tape and finding areas where we can get better is only going to make this profession continue to grow, where officers are going to be safer and more professional as time goes on, the more we can break it down that way.
how often are you bringing, so in a month, how many reviews do you do, like on average? And then when you do a review, like how many of those result in some kind of further training?
We usually get about a dozen a month, and it varies year by year because it goes off of a percentage from the previous year's total use of force statistics. So, I mean, if there's 500 use of force incidents, it'll break down to a certain amount of numbers. But we get about a dozen use of force cases that we inspect every month. So, of those dozen, it's not a consistent, like every month we're doing one.
Of course,
But
some,
I mean,
some months are busier than others.
We've gone 2 months. We've gone 2 months straight where like everybody looks good. There's no issues with the use of force. There's maybe some positive commendations that get put out there, and there's no remedial training that happens. And then sometimes there's just some bad drug in the water and everybody's fighting naked people on PCP.
That's the no pants meth.
Yeah,
I've talked about this before. Like every couple of months, you'll have a certain type of meth that comes through that makes everyone take their pants off.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed that. There's like a trend where it's like you'll have a week where it's like there'll be like 5 of these calls every day, like a guy in the median with no pants on.
Yeah.
Like,
we're always after the fair. There's always
we got
just
the no
after
pants
fair,
meth.
There's always some issues because I mean there's some meths. There's some months that we might send 2 or 3 cases through for remedial training, but I'd say on average maybe once a month or once every other month.
And it's not always bad. It might generally be like, oh, hey, we need to intervene because something bad. And it could be just like, oh, dude, this could have worked better. We want to give them this tool. It's not always bad.
How do you communicate that to the officers? So if I get called in for remedial training, the first thing I'm going to think is like, I'm in trouble.
What did I do wrong?
Yeah, what did I do wrong?
It's definitely delicate.
delicate.
You get some officers that are pissed off that they're there. They don't want to be there. And it's just, they wear it on their face. Like we're pretty good readers of people. And you can tell that these people don't want to be there when they come in for remedial training.
Yeah.
It's almost always initially like, gosh, they're going to tell me that I did this messed up or that messed up. They're just Monday morning quarterbacking me. They weren't there or whatever. Like there's some negative connotations to it in the beginning for sure. But we send this message that like we are bringing you here out of a place of love because we care about you, we care about your partners, we care about the officers in this department, and we care about this department in this city, and we want to make sure that we are keeping you safe and out of trouble. I would much rather us be the bad guy and the one that is going to come here and criticize you than you have to go on the stand and have to explain your actions to a defense attorney who really wants to make you look bad.
Yeah.
Or
Somebody's definitely not on your side.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been sued in federal court before, and I've had to go up and testify as a defendant, and it is not a fun spot, even knowing that I did nothing wrong and that everything that we did was exonerated and we got no judgments issued against us. But just the process of going through all that sucks and it's stressful. And if we can get officers to understand like, hey, we would rather be the ones that find these little issues, address them with training, give you all the knowledge and information possible to perform better in the future, then you won't have to go through that, stressful situation of being sued, or having that viral video that goes and starts getting, millions of views overnight, where, you're using force that looks worse than you needed to do or something. We would much rather be the bad guy in the training environment and find these things that we can make officers better than for them to have to deal with that on the back end. It's almost like a tough love that we give them,
But it's also, we're truthful in one particular sense. If you look at the whole thing, 99% of it's good, and that 1%. So we don't hammer the bad. We actually are truthful. Like, dude, you did a great job. And me as a trainer, I am a tool for patrol. I'm grateful for patrol. They're keeping my family safe. I'm training. And so I acknowledge, like, what you're doing is incredible. It's a hard job that you're going to fail. So truthfully, you're killing it. And here's a particular thing we're addressing. So that's a truth. That's a truth claim. Start with that. Followed by humbly, like, I don't know everything. I have a video. When we know videos doesn't capture everything.
Yeah.
So I want to pick their brain, like, hey, walk me through your thoughts, what you're seeing, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It helps me go for that training. I don't have the answers until I have the question, like, what's going on here, bro?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, is like, do you guys, like, when you bring them in, is there like, I'm assuming there's some kind of a dialogue, like kind of go work through that thought process and have them explain it. Has it ever changed? Like, so you say you guys do your review, right? And then you're reviewing the report and the body cam and what the sergeant did and all that. And before you actually talk to the officer and they come in, you call them in for the training, and then I guess you would call them in first so you already know, like, hey, we're going to do training. We're going to focus on these areas. Yeah. And you bring them in and you start talking about it. Does that ever change, like, the perspective? You know what I mean?
No, I mean, it has before. There is.
I guess it shouldn't, because whatever it is, should be covered in the report. It should be covered in the investigation.
So that they there's a notification that goes out and tells them, like, hey, you're assigned this training. These were some of the issues that were identified. So they already come in kind of understanding, like, what we identified as what maybe the problems or the areas where there's the area for improvement. And so we bring them in, and that first part is always that debrief. It's watching the videos, talking to the officers. It's just having a conversation like this, where we want to hear their mindset. We want to hear them, see if there's anything more that they could have explained. And like Matt said, 90% of the time it's the officers, they already know, like, I already did this one. Like, I could have done this better. I could have done that better.
They'll come and tell us, hey, I'm coming to EIS.
Yeah,
Like,
they'll tell us beforehand, like, hey, whenever you see this case, I'm coming through for retraining, just so you know. So, I mean, and so many people have come through. I mean, we've been having this working group for about 5 years now. And so it's such a common practice in the culture of our department that it's really, the stigma's kind of worn off. I'd like to, at least the way I see it. I mean,
that makes sense,
when we first started doing it, I think that we got a lot more pushback, but now that everyone kind of understands that this is just something that we have in the department, kind of like a checks and balances, and it's for the betterment of the officers, and it's for the betterment of the department as a whole, and that it's really, it's not something that uses discipline. There's nothing that goes permanently into a file that says, like, here's a negative, sustained IA complaint or something like that. That's something that's separate from another.
Well, that's another
division.
fear that people will have too. Is like, oh, if I go to EAS training, say I have to go to EAS training 3 or 4 times over these however long, 5 years or something, and then I end up getting sued civilly. Like, are they going to go back to my EAS training file and they're going to be like, well, these times that this, and this, and is that going to be used against me? And
we've yet to see that. I mean, there is always a potential that training documents are discoverable.
Yeah, they're discoverable. It's public record.
Yeah, and so a lot of these things, if they get requested, they are discoverable. But I mean, we're not, sliming people in training documents, just like they're not sliming themselves in reports and saying that they're, deficient in this area, this area, this area. We're, again, it's trying to find like they're titled EIS, like early intervention system, but it's not the most accurate description for the type of training that we give. It's finding an opportunity to develop an officer and make them better, and then just capitalizing on that. And I mean, we it's not just the individual officer too. We look for trends. So I mean, we'll follow trends in what types of force are being used, what types of force are being criticized the most, and try and shift officers' perspectives and their training and performance to, fit the mold of what's going to keep them safest and keep them out of hot water. We were seeing early on in the working group that a lot of officers have a technique that they're most proficient with, and it's a standing modified search. And so they would put everybody in a standing modified search. And so you'd see a lot of videos where an officer would make contact with someone, they'd sit them on a curb or they'd sit them in a position of disadvantage. They'd do their records checks, they'd finish their investigation, find out, okay, I got probable cause to arrest this person, or they have a warrant, whatever, and make the decision they're going to arrest him. And all these officers were like, hey man, go ahead and stand up, put your hands on top of your head, and they'd be putting them into the standing modified position
wow.
where they're
Yeah.
most comfortable, because that's the search that they do the most.
Yeah.
And then what's that person do? Almost every single time they spin off, because
run.
now they're on their feet and it's an even playing field.
Yeah.
So we saw that, and so we started adding a lot more repetitions and training on seated handcuffing. So if you already have somebody seated on the ground with their feet crossed, sitting on a curb,
Yeah.
and you just come up behind them and you take control of their arm and you place them in handcuffs, like they don't really get the chance to fight. I mean, if they really want to, then they can. But
Well,
you're
and if
already
they do, you're in a position of advantage.
100%.
I'd rather start the fight with me over the top of that person
Exactly.
seated and have a little bit of control than with them up on their feet, putting up their dukes.
Yeah.
You know?
So I mean, and it was one of those things that we saw trending where it's like, why are all these officers standing people up to put them in handcuffs?
were
And then
comfortable with
they're
that
immediately
technique?
getting into fights when these guys run. So
Yeah.
I think that we probably prevented a lot of uses of force from happening. And then every now and
wonder
then
if
there's
that-
somebody that'll still fight from that seated position.
And I
but-
wonder where that's coming from. Is that coming from the field training officer? He reminds me. So my son-in-law, he just got hired at a department in Texas, and he's in his field training phase. And he was telling me a story about how he was arresting a guy, and I can't remember what they arrested him for, but they had the guy detained. He's sitting on the curb, and he's got his feet out and his hands on his legs, and they make the determination they were going to arrest him for whatever it was. And so he said he went over there and he put his hand on the guy's shoulder and he grabbed his arm behind his back. He started giving him commands, like telling him what to do. And he went to put him in handcuffs. And then once he put him in handcuffs, and he stood him up and he said, "Hey, you're under arrest for," and then told him what they're arresting him for. And the FTO was like criticized him afterwards. He's like, "Why?" He's like, why did you not tell him that he was under arrest before you put him in handcuffs?" And Anthony says, "Well, because I'm not very fast."
That's good. That's good.
And he didn't like it. And his FTO told him, he's like, "Well, I like to paint the picture for my body cam in case this gets reviewed later on, that like I'm, letting this person know, and basically for like making some, I don't know, documentary, like feel good film on his body cam in case somebody from their command staff reviews their video or he's criticized later on." Like, and Anthony he's like, "Yeah, I don't agree," but he's in training, so what he needs to do.
Yeah, you can't really argue with your FTOs.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's
He's
got
like,
their
"Yeah,
own.
because I'm not very fast." So yeah, anyways, that's a trend you're seeing where like, okay, the person's seated, you have them in a position of advantage, you've decided you're going to arrest them, so then they're like, "All right, get up now."
Yeah. Well, early on, like a couple years ago, we were seeing a lot of
Really?
it. Yeah. And
That's
then-
interesting.
And the suspect with a little bit of brain cells is like, "Oh, I'm on my feet now. I can run."
Yeah.
And they try and run, and then the use of force would happen.
I'm surprised it didn't get corrected at the street level, because I just remember being a street cop, and if I saw one of my partners do, like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And like, does that happen anymore? Like
What?
partner to partner, like sort of checking each other on silly stuff like that?
No, it doesn't.
No.
I mean, I do it,
Yeah.
but that's just because, people call me a bully because I call people out all the time. So,
I think it's probably how you call them out, I'd imagine.
I mean, it still happens though. Whenever
yeah.
someone's fucked up, I need to be like, "Hey, dude, that's fucked up because of X, Y, and Z."
Yeah.
And some people don't like that.
So maybe you could use a little more tact.
Yeah, probably for sure.
But with that
100%.
concept,
I don't personally care about
but
tact.
I still, but it's still important to check your peers,
Yeah.
when they're doing something either not safe or dumb.
Yeah.
Like that was dumb.
with that, that's a great point. We don't have enough time to train. That's true. Yet every single street encounter is a training point that I would highly encourage officers to care enough about your buddies and your own self to review not every single call, but calls where there's a use of force or calls where you saw something. It's literally like there was one buddy who he had a trainee, and I don't want to step on his toes, so I just asked him, "Do you mind if I show a car extraction?" Because he had the guy just get out. I'm like, "Dude, get out with some control." And he was super cool to be like, please show him. I appreciated that. It's an infield training point. We have so many opportunities. And I would argue, if you care about your buddies and yourself, you should be doing that amongst each other, fixing each other.
Yeah. Checking each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you can check each other nicely. I mean, I don't really care about the nicety part, but also too, like if you really want to get the message apart, sometimes it's good to have tact, because if you come in a little hot, then people are not going to remember the message. They're just going to remember that you're an asshole.
I'm not like cussing them out or anything. Jeez, you're like painting me to be this horrible person.
Yeah, and I think that could be applied in so many areas. Like obviously the peer-to-peer correcting, or just the counseling. I think that whenever people do come through for training and just the tone of how we're communicating with them, and
Yeah.
and I think that it's they recognize that this is a genuine concern for, their safety, everyone else's safety. But like even in like an officer involved shooting, you could explain yourself and your actions in your interview after getting into an OIS, but really like how you say those things is almost going to be more important than what you're actually saying. Like you could say all the right things, but if you were just involved in a officer involved shooting where you had to, use deadly force on someone and you're completely monotone and there's no emotion and you're not being as real and genuine as you can be, like that can be perceived as like, well, this person, like maybe they don't even care that they had to use deadly force.
Yeah, that can be perceived by some. I try not to you and I have talked about this too, the different emotional responses that happen under stress.
Oh, there's
a whole gamut of weird things that happen to you under stress and immediately after. And so I try not to be judgmental on like people's emotional state.
Right.
Because some people, they just can't help themselves. Again, they got a smile on their face and it won't go away. And it's not because they're happy. Like they might be super stressed out.
I mean, sometimes when people get nerves, it's just, that's what they do. They get smiley.
Weird stuff.
There's a couple guys in our department that like, you can just tell that they're a little amped up and they're a little nervous because they can't wipe that smile off their face.
Yeah, that's
happened.
happened 100%.
Like Smiley in the academy.
Yeah. Well, that's happened to me. Like that exact thing. I was super, and I don't get the details, was super sketchy call that all resulted in the end of it, and was walking away. And I remember my face, I could not stop smiling, and I wasn't happy at all. I was like pretty traumatized and like ready to go home, and like I couldn't wipe this like shitty grin off my face. Like I was physically trying to like pull my mouth down, and it wouldn't work. But yeah, so anyways, I don't get too far about their emotional responses, but you were saying about
well, one thing I was going to say about the trends was there's a lot of, there's certain types of force that more attention will be paid to them, and I think that that's clear. I mean, we've seen that in every viral video, from a George Floyd video to a Rodney King to any of these other like high profile use of force incidents. Like there might be circumstances where similar force types were used and they just don't garner the attention. So I mean, there are some types of force that get used and they get a lot more attention. And one of those is strikes. We've seen a lot in our inspections.
Like hand strikes.
Hand strikes. With like punches, kicks, elbows, things like that. And they're a great tool, and in the right context, they work well. But I think they are, and I mean not necessarily overused, but they sometimes get used and it's not the best tool for the job. It's a great tool sometimes. There's a case that we had a couple years back where it was a pretty serious fight, a really big dude, and he took a lady hostage, and it wasn't the same one from the OIS I talked about earlier, but it was he took a lady hostage, he's holding her, and they fall down onto the ground, and there's 2, maybe 3 officers there at the time, but there was no window of opportunity for them to use a taser or baton or anything like that. Like literally all they had was this guy's face exposed. And so the officer just starts punching and just decking this dude in the face. And it causes him to kind of like loosen his grip, and they pulled this lady away, and now he stops choking her, and then they could go use other force options. But
that was mine.
For the
not my use of force, but I was a supervisor.
Oh, did you do that one? Yeah. It was an interesting one, but there was some criticizing of the officer for using strikes, and I stood up for him. I said that was the best tool he could have used at that time, and it was effective because he stopped choking the lady. So I mean, I think that it's still a great tool that officers need to use, but understanding the environments of when they're going to be most effective, like that. I think that historically in law enforcement, you get the guy that would fall on the ground and they tuck their arms underneath him, and the immediate response was just punch him until you can get his arms out. And I think that after review and looking at and analyzing that technique, it was found like, wait, this isn't the most effective way of getting someone's arms out. Yeah. So there's different like mechanical control techniques that we teach now that are going to pry off, like even like a big strong guy like Matt. Like I could get a pretty skinny officer to go underneath with these techniques and be able to pry an arm out and get control of it without having to use strikes. And again, it protects. It protects the officer because a lot of broken hands were happening.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to say.
Punching people, not knowing how to punch people, and punching them in the wrong spots. Yeah. And officers were just breaking their hands and getting injured. And then they weren't always the most effective tool for the circumstances. I just
think of it as like I know it's an age-old tool, but it just seems kind of silly. It's like you have all these tiny little bones and all these tiny little ligaments and all these little joints and all this stuff that has to work correctly in order for it to function. And you're going to ball that up and smash it into some like hard thing. Like, I don't know.
And that suspect feels probably in 2 days, he's back to normal.
Yeah.
and your fingers are broke for the next
Yeah.
30 years. You're feeling it. But also, you don't have physical control of that guy. If he wants to grab a weapon as he's eating punches, he's going to.
Yeah.
I'd rather control hands.
So what's the best hand strike to not break your hand?
An elbow.
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 That's what I was going to say.
If
It's
you're, in
like-
close, if you're in close proximity,
Yeah.
if you're going to use a strike, an elbow is way more effective.
Yeah, and maybe as a new officer, I might have punched more, but like as I got more experience, like if I'm in that situation, it's just like, yeah, you're gonna break your freaking hand. I mean, forget about the looks and all the other stuff you just kind of went over. Or just like strategically, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like I might break my hand, and I need to use my hands for stuff.
Yeah, your hands are
A
important.
lot less likely to break an elbow.
Yeah.
A hammer fist is not a bad option either.
Yeah.
The less issues.
Yeah,
Yes,
and I bring up the striking thing because it is something that we've been able to recognize, and it's one of those statistics that we've kind of like trended down quite a bit on officers using strikes, and it's been good in different ways because they're getting better control by using these jiu-jitsu based control holds and these like wrestling and jiu-jitsu techniques versus just striking, but also they're getting way less scrutiny from the community, from these political groups.
Yeah.
They're not getting those viral videos where they're just sitting on top just smashing somebody in the face. It looks bad. I mean,
Yeah.
It looks
the
boring.
optics of it.
It
The
looks,
optics of it look way
comparative
better
looks
too.
boring,
and
yeah.
it's more effective.
It is more
in all
effective.
optics.
That's the other thing. It's just like having been punched and elbowed. It's like in close quarters. It's depending on the positioning and everything, but like most of the time, you can deliver a lot more force with an elbow than you can with a
yeah.
punch from like a grappling standpoint. But it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't look. If we're watching a video of it, a punch just looks so much more scary, and like the optics of it are so much worse. Whereas an elbow strike delivers more force and more damage, but it doesn't look as scary.
Yeah, and I mean a big part of what you want from a police officer using force is like you do want that level of professionalism, and the more control you have as the officer, like the more professional you're going to look. And if you're just swinging haymakers on somebody, you don't always look like you're under control of yourself. And I mean, a lot of the same thing comes from the stuff that comes out of the officer's mouth. We've been really been a lot more direct in our training on the commands that officers are using. Historically, I mean, what would officers say when they get into use of force? Stop resisting, stop resisting, stop resisting 100 times as they're swinging a baton.
Yeah.
And the message was like, well, that way, if there's witnesses, down the street, they hear that you're telling this guy to stop resisting, and that's why we would do that. Well, it's kind of a flawed system for us to hold on to now that everybody has a body camera that records everything that they're doing and saying. So
More specific instruction.
yeah, more specific instruction.
Specifically, what would you like me to do?
Yeah, the catch-all that kind of covers all the bases that are legally required is this acronym IOW or Iowa, and it's where officers, if they just identify themselves, they provide an order, they provide a warning, and they allow for time for compliance if it's feasible. I mean, and it could sound just like this: police stop or I'll use force, and you've identified yourself as an officer, you've given a lawful command to stop, and you've given a warning that if it's feasible that you're going to use force, and if there's time to do so, you allow for time to comply. And if there isn't compliance and you have to use force, you've at least covered yourself and you've checked all those boxes. And the less f-bombs and profanities that you can throw out in that statement and those orders, the more professional you're going to sound, the more in control of yourself you're going to look. Because
But we understand if you still say them because adrenaline. It
100%. Like like adrenaline is a thing. Like and I mean I've been in uses of force where things have come out of my mouth and then afterwards you get that clarity and you kind of calm down. And you're like, and even me to myself, I'm like, why'd I say that? Like now, like this totally fine use of force that was completely justified and there's no issues with. I don't look as professional because of the stuff that was coming out of my mouth. And so I think the more that officers can understand that and control it, because it is something that can be controlled even with the adrenaline dumps. Because I've seen videos of. There's a video, I can't remember what it was out of, but a couple officers on a traffic stop and they get ambushed. And this guy comes out, I want to say he had a rifle, and he shoots one officer and kills him. And then is engaged in this pretty heated ongoing gunfight with this other officer. And they're moving through a parking lot and around vehicles, and he's having to, pie around this car where the guy went down, and he has to lay more rounds on this guy. And it was like a good 30-second minute gunfight that he was involved with this dude where I think there's even a civilian that got shot and his partner that got shot. And this guy was like extremely professional throughout the whole thing and like didn't even drop a single F-bomb. And it was pretty impressive because he went through and he returned fire, he got off the X and he was engaged in this gunfight. And everything that came out of his mouth was just like clear commands, super professional. So I mean, like, there's ways to do it, because you can't tell me that you're going to get more of an adrenaline dump than your partner getting killed right in front of you.
Yeah.
And still staying into that like locked in professionalism zone. Like, there's ways to do it.
And also, it's a technique that you like if you're controlling what you're saying, and not even just with like the profanity, but like the tone and the tenor, like you're having more control of yourself. And I used to think this is like an officer, like a patrol officer, like if I got to get on the radio during a high stress situation, I'm going to really focus on. And again, when I came from a generation, we used to criticize each other a lot more. But like, if you got on the radio and you sounded amped up, like you were going to hear about it. Like they were going to make fun of you.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was coming. Right? So like, mainly it started off as like, I don't want to be made fun of by my friends, like sounding like I'm scared. So like, I'm going to control what comes out of my mouth and say it like calm and collective. But by forcing yourself to do that, like, and to have that, like, just on radio traffic, but it also works, like you're saying, with the language, I think that it really helps you to like get a firm grasp of control of your other, like your other faculties and like your decision making, your physical actions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the sooner you can just kind of take that tactical breath and you can kind of slow things down a little bit, and you're going to respond better. And then you can whisper into the radio, nice, cool, calm and collected, that you got a failure to yield and it's going this direction, and instead of, screaming on the radio, I'm in a pursuit.
That's one example. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I picked up from the CalFIA conference a couple weeks ago is there was an attorney there that goes all over the country and talks about police use of force incidents and whatnot. And they asked, what is one thing that if you could provide one word of advice to police officers across the country, what would it be? And the attorney said, stop swearing. Like, everything that you do is usually good, but the way that you say it and the way that things sound is hard to sell, and it's hard to convince juries and grandmas and these community members that are only knowing cops from going to coffee with the cop and National Night Out, and then they see this cop coming off of on body camera, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is MFer, and then it's hard to convince them, like, well, that's not the cop I just saw at National Night Out or at Coffee with a Cop. And so it can be explained for sure. Like, there's adrenaline, there's things that happen, and there's ways that that profanities might just happen and fill into your vocabulary. But I've yet to see, and the argument was always like, well, some people only understand one language. They only understand if you talk to them this way. But I still, in almost 20 years in law enforcement, have yet to see the case where someone used regular commands without profanity and then threw in a couple F-bombs, and then the person started to comply. So, I mean, the things that you say are going to matter, and it's going to be used to judge and perceive your actions based off that totality of the circumstances. And you got to understand, like, it's not your peers that are really going to be the ones judging you. I mean, they're going to judge you, but whenever it goes up to the court systems and you have to, justify your actions to attorneys and whatnot, it's the, shop owner and it's grandma and it's all these civilians.
And even if it only like
it.
negatively impacts the perception by like a small percentage, like 5%, like you still would much rather have that 5% on your side.
100%. Yeah. 100% would rather have that 5% on your side.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm going to throw in to specifically Christian police officers. The Bible says, don't let any corrupt communication come out of your mouth. So if you're arguing, I have to for X, Y, and Z cases, you have to. Like, you have your creator who tells you some command that didn't factor that in. You have to.
So what do you say, Matt? What are some alternatives to curse, like, F words?
It takes extra time. Instead of saying, hey, mother effer, stop running. Hey, stop running. You just take it out. You don't even need it. Or there are some times, dude, when you get scared and you let it slip. Oh, crap. Yeah, that's fine. You can say that.
Crud.
There's filler words.
You can pray about that later, okay?
But, it's like, I was going to ask you.
Stinking butt back here.
People, do you think it's a police training environment that's how that guy did? Or do you think it's his day-to-day living that he's training, being cool, calm, and collected?
I'm
at
sure
home
it's
with
his
the kids?
day-to-day. Yeah, I'm sure that if you talk to that guy, and again, I don't know this guy. I can't even remember the department that it happened out of, but I guarantee that in his day-to-day life, he is probably extremely calm and
the kind of person who doesn't use that language in his day-to-day. Yeah.
Right. You're always training. At home with the kids, at work. You're always training.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I had a quick question real quick. One of the trends, speaking on trends, one of the trends that I've kind of noticed is the when it comes to intermediate force and force options within that is, you have your pepper spray, you have your 40 millimeter launchers, your batons, your tasers, now pepper ball. Two of the ones, or rather, just to speak on two of them, tasers and batons. You've kind of just seen I've seen specifically an influx of tasers over the use of batons, and to where almost the baton is just hardly ever used.
Mm-hmm.
I think last year was maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's super small numbers.
And then tasers is kind of significantly more when they are being used.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a taser dependence in law enforcement. I think that
big time.
a lot of officers use it because, for one, it's an effective tool and it gives you some range for the most part. Especially now, our department's transitioning to the Taser 10s. So I mean, you have 40 to 45 feet of range, and you have 9 total options where you can use intermediate force. Baton's going to be a lot more close up, more short distance weapon. I mean, it's only going to give you a certain amount unless you throw it really far. But
Yeah,
With TJ Hooker.
yeah.
yeah.
But I think that officers they're always carrying their taser. They're not always carrying a baton. I think that's definitely a component to it. And I think that they are probably a little bit more confident in their ability to use a taser versus a baton. I think a lot of officers realize that whenever they use a baton, they have to get up close and personal. They might be in a vulnerable position where they have their hands down and their face exposed when they're having to deliver a baton strike. And I think for sure there's probably some officers that have the optics that they don't want to be batoning someone. It's basically a club that you're using to hit another human being. It's not.
Yeah, it's pretty much the oldest weapon there is.
It is. It's one of the oldest for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Stones are the other one,
and it's still something that we carry every day. But it's a super effective tool if it's used properly. I can tell you that. I mean, I've used the baton, and I've seen a lot of baton usage where you use it and it works and the person goes down. But I've also seen a lot of people where they are so spun out on drugs that the baton does nothing to them. The taser can override that because it's dealing with the neuromuscular incapacitation of your muscles, whether you're on drugs or not. If you get a good connection with taser probes that's a 12-inch or more spread and it's connected into the muscle tissues, it's going to lock the person up no matter how much drugs they've done. I mean, in most situations, I can't say always. There's never an always, but almost always, if you get a good connection and there's nothing obstructing it, you're going to get the desired effect. But that being said, I think there's a lot of people in law enforcement that are taser dependent and they are tool dependent. And what we'd like to see is them be able to come back down to that foundation that we talked about of being more dependent on their hands-on techniques, because the taser fails a lot of times.
Yeah.
There was one a couple of years ago, a case that we were inspecting, and it's kind of the blunder part of the podcast where this will come into play. So these officers, there's a guy in a backyard, and there's probably about 6 officers there. But this dude is a big guy, and he's got a big metal pipe, and he's clearly aggressive, assaultive. He's not going to jail. I can't remember what the whole context of the call was, but he's waving this pipe around, and he's getting ready to assault officers if they go up and go hands-on. So it's not practical or probable for them to go up there and put themselves in danger. So he starts swinging this pipe around, and then it was like Dr. Octopus of all these officers at the same time making the simultaneous decision that it was time to use their tasers. And so there was just taser wires coming flying from every direction at this dude, and he was just blocking them all like the Matrix with this freaking big old pipe. And not a single one, I mean, they might have connected, but not a single one was effective. He broke off all these things. And so ultimately there's probably 4 officers that deployed their tasers multiple times, and ultimately they still had to go up and go hands-on.
Well, he had the pipe? Or did he drop it?
I think he either dropped the pipe or they closed the distance and knocked it out of his hands. I can't remember the exact circumstances, but I know they closed the distance on him and were able to get him into custody by just going hands-on. But it was just funny because everyone depended on the taser, hoping that it would work, and 6 deployments later or whatever it was, and
Yeah, because you get 2
luck.
right now.
This guy's a
Or at least
ninja.
4.
On the Taser 7,
the
there's 2 cartridges, so, and each one fires two probes, so you got a total connection of 4 probes that you could get on a person.
Now with the Taser 10,
Taser 10, there's 10.
It's going to go up. Taser's going to go up.
Yeah, we've seen.
But it's going to be effective.
I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen, because we started rolling these Taser 10s out in June, and so a couple months later, and I'm surprised we haven't seen more deployments. But the ones that we have seen, it's been a pretty effective tool.
Nice. All right. Well, John, Matt, thank you guys for coming out and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
you.
Always a pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you everyone for listening, and stay frosty.